What happens when one of Hollywood's top environmental voices faces off with a talk show host who mocks everything he believes in? We're about to hear the hidden truth behind how a normal late-night interview turned into one of the most dramatic showdowns on TV, ending with Leonardo DiCaprio being forced off the Jimmy Kimmel live set by security. This wasn't just a celebrity disagreement. This was about dignity, loyalty, and what happens when pride explodes on live television. Hit that subscribe button and leave a comment, because this story is more intense than you think. Backstage in the green room, the mood was unusually tense that Tuesday night. Leonardo DiCaprio sat quietly, looking over his notes, ready to talk about his new environmental film and his next acting role. He had done countless interviews over his long career. Something about tonight felt strange. The crew looked uneasy. Whispering and avoiding his eyes, his publicist Sarah paced near the snack table, her phone buzzing nonstop. "Leo, they want a quick chat before the show," Sarah said, walking over, concern clear on her face. "Jimmy wants to run through some extra questions." DiCaprio looked up. "That's odd. We already gave them the list of topics yesterday." They could hear Jimmy Kimmel's laugh coming from his dressing room through the thin walls. But it sounded forced and tense. Then the head writer, Marcus, appeared at the door, looking awkward. "Mr. DiCaprio, Jimmy would like to speak with you alone before we start," Marcus said, nervously fiddling with his clipboard. "He has a few extra questions he wants to discuss." DiCaprio glanced at Sarah. In all his years of doing press, A-list, actors never got pulled for last-minute talks before going live. Something was definitely off. "Is something wrong?" DiCaprio asked, standing and fixing his jacket. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Jimmy just wants tonight's show to stand out. He's been feeling some heat from the network over ratings." That comment said a lot without saying much. DiCaprio had heard the whispers about Kimmel struggling, his show falling behind. Network execs questioning if he still mattered in late night, but using guests to stir up fake drama? That was anew. "Low even for Hollywood. I'll talk to him," DiCaprio said. Following Marcus down the narrow hallway to Kimmel's room, the door was slightly open. DiCaprio could hear Jimmy talking fast on the phone. "No, trust me. This is going to be TV gold. So serious, it'll be like picking off fish in a barrel." DiCaprio clenched his jaw. He knocked once, then stepped inside without waiting. Kimmel quickly ended the call and turned around, flashing his usual big smile. "Hey, there's the man of the hour. Ready for some fun tonight?" "Jimmy," DiCaprio said calmly, but firmly. "I heard you wanted to go over something before the show." Kimmel pointed to a chair, but DiCaprio stayed standing. The dressing room was filled with trophies, celebrity photos, and joke cards spread everywhere. A screen showed the live audience getting warmed up. "Look, Leo, I'll be straight with you," Kimmel said, still smiling, but with a sharp look in his eyes. "We said we'd focus on your new projects, sure, but I think the audience wants something a bit more exciting." "Exciting how?" DiCaprio asked. Kimmel picked up a stack of cue cards. "Well, there's been some buzz lately about your private jets, yacht trips, all that usual celebrity stuff. I thought it'd be fun to talk about the contrast between your green activism and, well, your carbon footprint." DiCaprio felt anger flare, but he kept his face calm. "Those stories are trash, Jimmy, and you know it. We've been friends a long time. Why would you blindside me on air like this?" "Blindside?" Kimmel laughed coldly. "Come on, Leo. It's just some harmless fun. People love it when celebs can laugh at themselves. If you've got nothing to hide, what's the big deal?" The arrogance in Kimmel's voice was obvious. DiCaprio realized this wasn't about making people laugh or boosting ratings. This was personal. Something had shifted in their friendship. And now Kimmel was ready to twist that history for a cheap moment on camera. "Jimmy, I came here as a guest and as a friend," DiCaprio said, voice steady. "If you want a real conversation about the climate or my work, fine. Here to be your joke for easy laughs." Kimmel's smile finally faded. "You know what your problem is, Leo? You've been pampered by this industry for so long, you forgot what a real interview looks like. Every host sucks up to you, asks soft questions. Maybe it's time someone actually held you to account." "Accountable for what?" DiCaprio asked. "For being a fake," Kimmel snapped, his tone now completely raw. You lecture people about climate change while living like a billionaire, jets, yachts, the whole deal. You pollute more in a month than most families do in a year. DiCaprio stared at him, stunned by how bitter Kimmel sounded. This wasn't humor. It wasn't a segment. It was a full-on attack, dressed up as comedy. I see, DiCaprio said softly. So you think tearing me down on your show is going to fix your ratings problem? Kimmel's face turned red. My ratings are fine, he said sharply. This is about giving the audience something real, not just promotion and fluff. No, Jimmy, this is about you being scared, DiCaprio said. Scared you're losing relevance, so you go after people who thought you were their friend. The air was heavy as the two men stared at each other. Neither would back down. And in minutes they'd be face to face on stage with the cameras. Rolling what was meant to be a simple promo spot was now turning into a public battle for honor and image. Kimmel straightened his tie and moved toward the door. Great, let's give them a show they'll never forget. DiCaprio watched him go, knowing this night would change everything. The studio lights were blinding as Jimmy Kimmel rushed out on stage. Full of energy that hid the tension underneath, the crowd cheered, not knowing they were about to watch something. Historic DiCaprio stood backstage, mind racing through all the things Kimmel might throw at him. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Academy Award winner Leonardo DiCaprio, Kimmel announced, smiling big but with cold eyes. DiCaprio walked out too. Loud applause, waved, and took his seat. The interview began like usual, some jokes, updates on Leo's projects. The crowd laughed, but DiCaprio could tell Kimmel was setting him up, circling like a hunter. So Leo, Kimmel said slowly, shuffling his cue cards. You've been a big voice for the environment. Unspeeches, documentaries, you've really made it your mission. Something I care about deeply, DiCaprio replied, staying calm. That's great, Kimmel said, still smiling, but with an edge. But can I ask, don't you think it's a bit, I don't know, strange? A guy flying around the world all year telling us to cut carbon emissions? The audience shifted in their seats. This wasn't a light jab. It felt like a setup. DiCaprio saw what was happening but stayed cool. Jimmy, I think you're mixing things up, he said. My job involves travel, yes. But I balance my footprint and invest heavily in green energy. It's not about being perfect, it's about moving forward. Kimmel leaned in, sensing a weak spot. But come on, Leo. You've got to admit it's hard to take climate advice from someone with private jets, giant homes, and probably no commercial flights since the 90s. When's the last time you gave something up for the planet? That question hit hard. DiCaprio clenched his jaw, but stayed professional. You're missing the point, Jimmy. Personal choices matter, but big change needs big voices speaking up, no matter their lifestyle. Kimmel repeated mockingly. Big. Change systemic problems. Sounds like an excuse to keep living large. The room was quiet now. Everyone could feel the aggression coming off Kimmel. DiCaprio knew this wasn't about joking. It was about breaking him down on national TV. You know what, Jimmy? DiCaprio said, his voice sharper. I thought we were friends. I've been on your show many times. If you had real questions, you could have asked me in private. Tried to shame me on air. Kimmel's fake charm vanished. Oh, so now I'm the bad guy. This is the problem with celebrities like you. Everyone treats you like a king and you can't take one real question. Real question? DiCaprio fired back, his cool starting to crack. You're not asking anything real. You're just throwing punches to save a dying show. Crowd gasped. Kimmel's face turned bright red, his confident image falling apart in real time. My show's dying, he snapped. At least I don't need to preach about saving the planet to feel important. At least I'm not a walking contradiction. DiCaprio stood suddenly, his chair scraping the floor. Walk-in contradiction? Really? Sit down, Leo, Kimmel barked, voice shaking. No, DiCaprio said firmly. You want honesty? Let's be honest. This isn't about carbon or activism. This is about you being scared you don't matter anymore and trying to drag others down with you. The studio froze. Kimmel's mouth opened and shut, stunned by DiCaprio's fire. You matter? Kimmel finally sneered. You're an actor. You pretend for a living. People only listen to you because you're famous, not because you know anything. And people only watch you, DiCaprio replied, because they're too polite to change the channel. Kimmel stood up, boiling. Get out of my studio. Gladly, DiCaprio said, tearing off his mic and throwing it on the chair. But before I go, let me say this. 5 years from now, nobody will remember your name. But the work I'm doing will still matter. Security, Kimmel shouted, voice cracking. 2 big men in black suits stepped out as the audience watched, frozen. Don't bother, DiCaprio said, straightening his jacket, leaving anyway. He turned to the audience, many of whom were now on their feet, clapping. Thanks for listening tonight. Just remember, real change takes courage, not attacks from the sidelines. DiCaprio walked off, but Kimmel yelled after him. That's right, run, Leo. It's just like you run from every real challenge. DiCaprio paused at the stage's edge, then turned back one last time. I'm only running from this sad sight, watching a once great comedian destroy himself for a few more views. The crowd exploded as DiCaprio disappeared backstage, leaving Kimmel alone. Shaken and maybe finished for good, the studio stayed completely still for what felt like forever after. DiCaprio walked off. Kimmel stood frozen behind his desk, his face still red from anger and shame, while the audience tried to process what they'd just seen. The camera crew looked unsure, waiting to see if they should cut to commercial or keep filming, caught between their instincts and the disaster. Unfolding live, Kimmel finally tried to get things back on track, but his voice was shaky and defensive. Well, there you have it, folks. Classic Hollywood behavior. Can't handle a few tough questions, so he storms off like a kid throwing a tantrum. But instead of laughs, the room was filled with silence and a few soft boos. Some people in the front rows were shaking their heads, clearly upset at how their favorite late-night host had acted. You know what? Kimmel went on, now sounding desperate. Maybe this is the kind of reality these celebs need. Maybe it's time we stop treating them like royalty and start asking them real questions. Then a voice from the audience cut through the silence. That wasn't journalism. That was just mean. Kimmel's eyes darted to where the voice came. From a woman in the third row, older, looking at him with sadness and disappointment. Excuse me? Kimmel said. I said, that was just mean, she repeated louder this time. I've been coming to your show for 3 years, and I've never seen you treat a guest that way. Leonardo DiCaprio is a good man doing real work for the planet hand. You ambushed him. The crowd began to murmur, some nodding in agreement. Kimmel could feel the crowd slipping away from him and fast. Look, I appreciate everyone's opinions, he said, forcing a smile that no longer felt real. But sometimes, comedy is about pushing limits, asking tough questions. That wasn't comedy. Someone else shouted from the back. That was bullying. The word hit Kimmel like a slap. Bullying, he repeated quietly. He knew that's exactly what it looked like. He had tried to tear DiCaprio down, and now it was backfiring on him completely. Behind the scenes, the producers were scrambling to salvage what they could of the show. Marcus, the head writer, stepped to the side of the stage and waved for Kimmel to wrap up the segment and do something. Say anything to shift the focus. Let's take a quick commercial break, Kimmel said, voice cracking. We've got some great comedy bits coming up next. As the cameras cut off and the lights dimmed slightly, Kimmel sank into his chair. The adrenaline that had driven his outburst was gone. And now he was left with the harsh reality of what he had done in live TV in front of millions. Marcus walked up carefully. Jimmy, we've got to talk about how to move forward with the rest of the show. How bad is it? Kimmel asked, without looking up. It's already blowing up, Marcus said, grim. Hashtag Team DiCaprio is trending. The clip is going viral. The network execs are coming down right now. Kimmel finally looked up and for the first time all night. His confident mask was completely gone. He wasn't a bold host anymore. He looked like a man who had just destroyed his own career in one night. I thought I could make him lose it, Kimmel said softly. I thought if I pushed hard enough, he'd snap and everyone would see he's just another spoiled celebrity. Instead, Marcus said, You're the one who snapped. And he came off as the calm, respectful adult. It was painfully ironic. Kimmel had tried to call out DiCaprio as a fake but ended up exposing his own bitterness instead. DiCaprio had stayed composed, defended himself without losing his cool, while Kimmel spiraled into mean insults and desperate jabs at. Back in the green room, DiCaprio paced as Sarah, his publicist, handled a flood of phone calls. The confrontation had already spread like wildfire, and everyone wanted DiCaprio's side of the story. "Leo, we need to decide what to do," Sarah said after ending another call. "Every outlet wants an interview. Everyone wants your take on what just happened." DiCaprio stopped and looked at her, clearly exhausted. "You know what I want," Sarah said. "I want to go home, forget this mess, get back to what actually matters." "But Leo, this is your chance to take control of the story," she said. "You could make Kimmel look even worse. People are already siding with you." "And then what?" DiCaprio asked. "We spend the next week trading jabs in the media. We make it all about the fight instead of the work we were supposed to talk about. That's exactly the problem with this business." Sarah was shocked. Even after being ambushed on national TV, Leo still wanted to take the high road. That kind of restraint was rare in Hollywood, and she knew it would only make Kimmel look worse in the public eye. Meanwhile, back on set, Kimmel was trying to finish the rest of the show, but nothing was landing. His comedy sketches felt flat. His timing was off. The energy in the room was gone, and the crowd never recovered from the earlier clash. Every joke felt forced. Every smile seemed fake. The charm that had once made him a top host had vanished. At the end of the episode, Kimmel tried to offer something like an apology, but it came off more like damage control than anything real. "Before we close tonight, I want to address what happened earlier with Leonardo DiCaprio," he said, reading carefully from cue cards. "Sometimes, in comedy, we push boundaries. Sometimes we go too far. If anyone was offended by my questions, that wasn't what I meant. But no one was buying it. It wasn't a real apology." He never said sorry to DiCaprio, never admitted he crossed a line. As the credits rolled, Kimmel sat alone behind his desk. The audience filed out slowly, many avoiding eye contact with him. The older woman who had spoken up earlier stopped, briefly near the stage. She didn't look angry, just sad. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Jimmy," she said softly before walking away. Those words hit him harder than any tweet or headline ever could, because she was right. He had been chasing something: tension, respect, relevance in a changing world. But instead of finding it, he was left with the cold truth. He had tried to ruin a good man's name for the sake of ratings, and all he ended up doing was ruining his own. The showdown between Jimmy Kimmel and Leonardo DiCaprio would go down as one of the most shocking moments in late-night history, but it would also serve as a warning about what happens when jealousy and insecurity take over and human decency is thrown away. Kimmel tried to destroy DiCaprio's name, but in the end, all he did was destroy his own. What do you think about this unbelievable clash? Is Jimmy Kimmel asking real questions? Or did he go too far? Hit subscribe and drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about what really happened that night.